Hapshat, the traditional position on gospel authorship, based on Papias, Polycarp, and early external evidence. Papias and Polycarp, both converts and disciples of John the Apostle, testified that the apostles authored the Gospels. This traditional position dominated Christian scholarship for roughly 1,800 years and rests on external historical testimony, scripture alone. Papias, as a hearer of John Papias, authored 5 books in which he states that he heard the voice of John. This places Papias in direct contact with John the Apostle and gives him firsthand knowledge of apostolic teaching and gospel origins. Irenaeus explicitly affirms that Papias knew John the Apostle against heresies 5.3334. Eusebius preserves Papias' own words, Church History 3.39.4. Papias writes, open quote, "If anyone came who had followed the elders, I questioned him in regard to the words of the elders, what Andrew or Peter said, or what Philip or Thomas or James or John or Matthew or any other of the Lord's disciples." Close quote. Significance of the past tense. Papias uses the past tense, what they said, indicating the apostles were already deceased. He sought testimony from elders who had personally known them. He then contrasts this with the present tense. Open quote, "And what Aristion and the presbyter John, the disciples of the Lord, are saying. For I did not think that what was to be gotten from books would profit me as much as the living and abiding voice." Close quote. Significance of the present tense. The present tense shows that John was still alive when Papias heard him. John is also explicitly identified as an elder, a title the New Testament itself uses for apostles. Fern John. Irenaeus, Polycarp, and the chain of testimony. In his letter to Florinus, Irenaeus states that he personally knew Polycarp and that Polycarp personally knew John the Apostle. Open quote, "I can describe the place where the blessed Polycarp used to sit and discourse, how he would speak of his familiar intercourse with John, and with the rest of those who had seen the Lord, whatsoever things he had heard from them." Close quote. Irenaeus further states, open quote, "Papias was a hearer of John and a companion of Polycarp, against heresies 5.33.4. Close quote. What this evidence establishes: 1. Irenaeus, a direct disciple of Polycarp, testifies that Papias was a hearer of John. 2. Eusebius preserves Papias' words and acknowledges his connection to John. 3. Rejecting Papias requires rejecting Irenaeus, who personally knew Polycarp. 4. Papias explicitly learned from elders who were apostolic eyewitnesses. 5. His preference for the living voice fits early Christian caution about forged letters, cf. 2 Thess 2:1-2. 6. The present tense proves John was alive when Papias heard him. 7. Elder is used by Papias as a title for apostles, including John. 8. Papias and Polycarp were contemporaries with shared access to John. 9. Polycrates of Ephesus confirms that John, the one who leaned on Jesus' breast, ministered and died in Ephesus, Church History 5.24-3. 10. The immediate successors of the apostles unanimously affirmed apostolic gospel authorship. Irenaeus on the 4 Gospels. Irenaeus writes, against heresies 3.11, open quote, "Matthew issued a written gospel among the Hebrews. Mark, the disciple and interpreter of Peter, handed down what Peter preached. Luke, the companion of Paul, recorded the gospel preached by him. Afterwards, John, the disciple of the Lord, who leaned upon his breast, published a gospel while residing at Ephesus in Asia." Close quote. Corroborating 2nd century evidence. Eusebius criticized Papias' intellect, yet still acknowledged his connection to John. Tertullian names the 4 traditional gospel authors. Against Marcion, c. AD 208. The Muratorian fragment, late 2nd century, lists Luke and John by name. Manuscripts titled The Gospel According to Luke date to around AD 200. Historical reasonableness. Within roughly 100 years, we have John, Papias, Polycarp, Polycarp, Irenaeus, Irenaeus preserving their testimony. By ancient historical standards, this is exceptionally strong. Alexander the Great's biographies appear 400 years later, yet are accepted as credible history. Conclusion: there is no historical basis for rejecting Papias and Irenaeus. Their testimony is early, personal, continuous, and externally corroborated.